probably don't know. We all know Paula is a loan originator. However, probably don't know that she used to be in a band. This guy came along, kind of took her out of that.
That's you.
So, and at least she didn't have to go to Ohio to pick you up from Mexico trip. So Paula does karaoke, so instead of doing all that fun stuff. So take it away, Paula.
Thanks.
So, quick question, are you going to be singing this? Or?
No.
Maybe.
No. And I didn't bring my cat that I did get from Ohio, so yeah. Funny things we do. Okay, so this morning I thought when it was brought to me speaking, I'm like, what am I going to speak about today? And just because of something that happened with a client, it prompted me to talk about title, investing, and all of that's very complicated. I will tell you that I am not allowed at all. It is against my license. I could lose my license if I suggested to anyone how to take title. So I will give you all the information. Title company won't even tell you if you really don't know. And there's this one fun little thing. If anybody wants a copy, I can email it to you, all the different options and how you can take title and what it means. So there's a lot, right? That's worse than bingo. But there's a couple things I thought were great to remind everybody if they don't already know, and there's been laws that have been passed to change things, like if a parent dies and leaves property to their child, usually best way is by will or trust and all that to avoid probate. But the great thing is for the child is that as long as they live in the property or are moving into the property, they get to take advantage of the property taxes that the parent is paying, as long as they live in it. So that's a bit, didn't used to be that way, but they changed that a few years ago. So that was kind of a bummer.
Death tax.
Because a lot of people were turning them into investment properties, and that's not doable. You have to literally move into the property. You have a certain amount of time to do so. And if you don't, then you're just going to step up to the current property taxes on the property. Does that make sense? Did you have a question, Wayne? A little, like you might.
So with the tax, like as if
Property
it's an
taxes.
investment of the house and like.
Yeah, they're going to rent it out.
So how many years is that? I'm curious.
There's a period of time. I believe it's the same as I believe it's 2 years. Don't quote me on that, but I believe that's what it is. So, and I do a lot of consulting with people. Hey, I'm getting this house and I want to do this or that. Okay, well, remember, if you don't live in it, then you're not going to take over the tax base of your parent. So they just have to decide then, are they going to keep it, sell it, or whatever. But I think the thing that's important is that people need to know the way that I operate is if a question comes up, if I don't know the answer, I'm not going to blurt out an answer. I'm going to find the answer, which is great because that teaches me. Yes?
I did not have anybody pass me any properties recently, so I'm not sure what the difference in the tax difference there is. Can you give us some examples?
Sure. Let's say you lived with your parents when you were growing up and they bought a house 30 years ago or more. What did they pay, $50,000 for that house? 15? That house, the property taxes are at based on $15,000, but they go up a little bit every year, just a little bit. But the price that somebody's paying, say in the Bay Area for a $2 million house, if they owned it, and there's several occurrences of that happening, is totally different. But the thing is that people also don't know that so let's say a parent, because I know somebody, and people get stuck, especially when they're older, they get stuck in, no, I'm staying here because I don't want to, lose this tax or whatever. Well, guess what else? So if kids live here, parents live in the Bay Area, they want to buy a house here, but they don't want the higher taxes, they can literally transfer their tax base from that house to the new house. So that is a big deal. It's a really big deal. So it's quite a calculation. I can't give it to you. You have to call the tax assessor's office to find out what that actually is, but it is a really big deal. So all this stuff, when I'm talking to my clients, it's part of the we get into really long conversations sometimes because of all the tactics of what they think. We start asking questions and realize there's a whole lot more options that they don't know about.
I was just gonna say over the weekend too, I found out that people think you have to, because it used to be you had to stay within the county. It's called
Right.
Prop 19. No, you can go anywhere now within the whole state of California
Yeah.
and carry your tax base with you if you're over the age of 55.
Yeah.
Or in this instance that she's telling
And
you, yeah.
the great thing too is that before you had to see if the incoming county would allow you to do that.
Yeah.
You don't have to anymore. It is
No.
just a prop, like it happens. So, okay,
Got a question?
yes,
Oh, is that like 1031?
no. A 1031 exchange is when you own an investment property and to avoid paying capital gains, I
Yeah.
suppose, on that, is you're transferring that to another property, but once you sell it, you have 6 months to invest that into another property. Yeah, so you can avoid forever paying taxes until one day you say, that's it, I'm liquidating, then you're gonna have to pay taxes, but, yeah.
And just to clarify, you're talking about property taxes, not a step up in basis when somebody dies, so that the
Yes.
people who inherit the home
Yes,
get it at the basis that it
Right.
was purchased
those are
at
two different
originally.
things, and the 1031 is totally separate as well. So
Yeah.
it's all avoidance or getting a better property tax base or avoiding capital gains. You know, there's so many things that can happen. Did you have something, Margaret?
No.
Okay. Okay.
I like it all.
Okay, so I'm involved in a divorce network group of people, and I was asked to join as the mortgage person to bring education to people who are thinking of going through a divorce. So in this little process, I've learned a lot because there's a divorce attorney in that group as well. Every time I go, I'm like, oh my God, it's crazy what I learned about, you know, community property, what is community property, what isn't. And this has also really helped me in my business because now I feel a lot more educated too to help my clients when they're going through something like that. Because you have, so let's say you get married, and so let's say, you know, you have your own property. That is not, that's separate property. That's not community property. And as long as any accounts or anything like that, right, those are separate property until you co-mingle them. So what does that mean? So let's talk about your property, for example, and why this is important and why this was brought up for me. So, so if you were to take a property that you owned and you decide you're gonna get cash out of that property, even if you don't buy another property, it could potentially be now considered that you kind of muddied the water and now you've commingled if some of those assets went into the marital assets, okay? And for sure, if you sell a property and you both decide to buy another one, now that is marital assets. You've lost your separate property, if that means anything for you. And so why is the vesting important? So I have a client that I helped refinance. It's a very long, painful story, but she was going through a lot of issues with the marriage and, you know, she probably shouldn't have been in it. But going through the refinance, she needed cash out very badly for things. But her husband, they were separated, but he still lived in the garage. And the property was still, it was really hers, but at one point they commingled it. So somehow between all of us, she got him to sign a quitclaim deed to sign off his interest to the property. So you have a separate asset became communal property, and as soon as he signed off on it, unless she did something else to commingle it back in, he has signed off his rights to that property. So now we're refinancing her again because she got into a mess when her brother died and probate and stuff with his and has to pay back the probate trust account. So she was freaking out about having to have the husband sign off again. And I was pretty sure she didn't have to, but I checked everything, made sure title was represented correctly. Married woman, sole and separate. We checked the grant deed, everything is intact, so she is okay to not have him sign again, because she was like, oh my God, I can't pull him into this thing again. Because they were still married, but now he doesn't live under the same roof. So, I know there's a lot of people in this business that don't know the ins and outs of all this, and they don't maybe check. It's a really big deal. I am not going to put my client's property in jeopardy and not give them the right answer. So if I don't know it, I'm gonna find it. And after 21 years of doing this, it's been some great information that I've been able to acquire. But it also changes all the time, so you have to stay up on top of what's going on. One of the other reasons why I love being in this group so much too is because there's so many people that I can call and, you know, ask questions. And that's there for all of us, so that's really great. Let's see what else. Any questions? I know it's a lot.
Or I was gonna say, could you just speak to also too, the thing that I see is that the parents wanna put the kids on title.
Oh, yeah.
I know. Yeah.
Yeah, there could be a lot of issues. There was, and I don't think they have it anymore, where for a while you could file a document that as soon as you passed, the property would immediately get turned into the child's name, but I don't think they do, that's not, that unfortunately that doesn't exist anymore. So when I'm putting clients through purchases or for whatever reason, if they put anyone else on title that doesn't belong there, be really careful for a lot of reasons. Let's talk about property taxes for one. So a lot of times if somebody is buying a house only because they can't afford it by themselves and they need additional income, then we'll put the other person on the loan, but not on title.
Oh.
And it's really important for a lot of reasons. One of the biggest ones is, as soon as they quit claim that person off, now their property taxes are gonna go up because they quit claim somebody off. So now it's gonna step up to the current value of the property. Yeah,
So it kind of like updates?
it
to the
does.
current?
It gets reassessed, yeah.
They're gonna get their money one way or another.
No, not necessarily, as long as
Not
they
if you
have.
set it up right from the
Okay, here's the
beginning.
thing, you've gotta have people on your team
That set it up
that
properly.
know
Yeah.
what to do initially, otherwise you're gonna get in trouble.
Yeah, it's not gonna work.
And when people are, Paula's not an attorney, but she will refer them to an attorney if they're making a mistake.
And I'll call
You know what
the
I
attorney.
mean? Right, I mean, she would say,
Yeah,
I really think you need to have an attorney review this.
yeah. And we've had attorneys in this group that we still have relationships with,
Yeah.
and I can just call them up, hey, my client has this, what do you think? You know, if they can't just give me the answer, there's a couple of attorneys that I can send to the client, they give a free consultation, so it works. Sometimes that's all they need.
So does the refinance also acts as a reassessment?
No,
No.
not as long as everything stays intact. If it's husband and wife, it doesn't do anything because it's community property. You start getting outside of that and it just depends, right? But you want to avoid it. You know, if you're only putting somebody on the loan because you need help to qualify, don't mess it up and put them also on title. So we just set the loan up that way initially, so. Any other questions?
So speaking of title, for quite a while, there were ads on the radio talking about title theft.
Oh, yeah.
Have you seen that?
It's-
Is that really
Or
a
they're just
thing?
trying to sell some insurance.
When I first heard about that some time ago, I was like, maybe we need to be concerned about this. And so I contacted some of my title reps that I work with. And they said, look, like they've been in business for years, right? Never heard of it actually happening. Even all the way up to the area, Scott Nipper, he's like,
Yeah.
never actually heard of it happening.
The one thing that is happening, I'm sorry.
No,
to
please.
interject. And this is happening, agents will be contacted, I have this vacant land, I wanna sell this vacant land. Agent lists the vacant land, the person lives out of state or can't come meet them or whatever the situation is. And there have been properties that have been sold, vacant land, that are actually not owned by the person that got the money for it. So that is a scam that has been happening.
Yeah,
But everybody's aware of it now
yeah.
throughout the United States. So I think it's got the kibosh, but
In
some
addition to
people
the whole
are.
wire transfer thing, and that's
Yeah.
why, like, if you sign documents and there's this big, all capital letters, like 4 documents that tell you about wire fraud. I literally was, luckily this was not my transaction, but it just happened. Somebody was buying a house it was through my office when I was at Finance of America. And the client had transferred $400,000 into escrow for a purchase. Didn't notify anyone it was coming, and 3 days later, they're like, hey, where's my money? Did you get my money? No, we don't have your money. Well, by that time, it already went overseas, so,
Gone,
yeah.
bye-bye.
So if somebody ever contacts you and says, hey, wire instructions have changed, follow these instructions, you never listen. So we can't even give wire instructions anymore. We leave that directly from the title company to the client. So there's no interception or interjection, nothing. So there's a lot of things that happen behind the scenes that we're constantly,
$400,000.
a lot of money. And it was
There's been
gone.
more money than that. There was a judge in New York that lost $1 million.
Yeah, yeah.
Speaking of title, well, there was a property purchase down in LA for the monk, but the monk had a lay person put a name on it. So now that the temple is like $3 million. So that lay person hired an attorney, they took the $3 million. They took, like, literally, because they said they owned it, because the name was on the title.
Yep, it's pretty sad. Title insurance can help with some of the stuff. I've seen it help. In my career of 21 years, I've seen title insurance help once. So it's a story, but anyway, I think we need to move on. Any other questions? Anybody want to chat? We can always chat after the meeting, so thank you for your time.
Wow.
Nice.